And we are live, guys. Let's have a fantastic discussion this morning. We're going to start with story time from what's been going on in my family's household in the past few days. And I've been beginning this process of educating my kids on the basics of life. And it's awesome when they've gotten to a certain age when they actually understand everything that you're saying, right? And you can have an open communication and dialogue with them about what works and what doesn't work when it comes to life. And the next thing in line was to help them understand success, right? How does success look like? And what is success? Success is actually becoming happy, right? Understanding joy, bliss, and happiness. If you understand that, you're successful. But what is required in order for you to become happy? You have to have something that you're striving towards. You need to have a goal of some sort that you can then achieve. Because if you have goals, you don't achieve them, then like what's the point of life, right? Like we're goal-oriented beings. And so, a while back, a long time ago, we started the process by reading a book called The Hidden Secrets of Think and Grow Rich. And I thought that was a great place to start because now they understand that it's very straightforward if you want to achieve your goals. It's burning desire, then it's having faith, then it's the next step. What was that again? Taking is making a plan and taking action. Okay, so third step is making a plan and taking action, and then persistence, and then the secret sauce at the very end is being consistent with those four until you achieve your goal. I thought that's a really powerful way to help them to achieve their goals, right? So we got that one squared out of the way. Then we started reading 100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozy. That one became a little bit too advanced, too intricate, and it was tricky because we only had one book, and it's like they weren't really understanding what was going on. So we skipped that book and we went to How to Influence and Influence People. These are the basics of life, right? And once you understand them, it sets you up for massive success later. Next in line was teaching them about money. Now, what do we need to understand about money? And this is what this channel is about. It's about teaching the basics of life and replacing the education system so that everyone understands the basics. And this is basic stuff of understanding how money works. A long time ago, I watched a series called The Hidden Secrets of Money. This is by Mike Maloney, and I want to show you guys this. His channel is this one. It's called Gold and Silver, and that's also the website that they've got as well, goldsilver.com. And why am I mentioning it? The host of that show is called Mike Maloney, and he made a series on explaining how money works from the very beginning of time. And if we go back really, really far, we'll come to understand that what was used as money was first, it was barter, right? When people were poor all over the world and they didn't have access to precious metals. Before that time, they bartered and gave each other cows and animals and, stuff. And the people that had land, they could grow stuff on it and they could, build things, etc. Right? So it was the barter economy, and a lot of fighting happened as a result of people not having resources. And then they came to a point where they started using things that were a medium of exchange and that functioned very well for also storing value. Because, like, okay, land, it stores value, right? Because everyone needs land to build their life on and to also create food, etc., right? But what about animals and things like that? That would expire because they eventually die, and it's also a lot of upkeep. And it's like if if you're gonna exchange that with someone, it's gonna require a lot of barter. It's like it's gonna be tricky, right? And so gold and silver came into the equation. It's precious metals. And what happened then is that everyone became wealthier because things could improve now because of speed. You could now say, everyone knows precious metals is money, So it's like, I want to exchange this for this. Okay, great. And then that became the store of value, is actually having precious metals. And so over time, we've now gotten into this space where we wanted something that was even easier than that. And because of the bank situation, they were like, hey, yo, we can store your precious metals, and they had security guards, and that's how banking was working in the beginning. And this is all what I've been explaining to my kids over the past few days and weeks, okay? And so the banks, what they did is they helped people so that people didn't have to store their precious metals at home, right? So there's like, it was safer to keep it with the banks because they had security, they had armed police, security guards, and as a result, it was safer there for everybody, right? And so banks became that, that place where, people trusted that your valuables would be kept safe. And you knew that whenever you wanted to, you could go and get your gold and silver and your coins and whatever it is that you had inside of the bank at any time because the bank would have it. And so over time, the government came in a bit later, right? But the banks were beginning now to understand that, hey, yo, this money is just standing here and there's people out there who want to borrow this and then pay us interest on it. Okay, so if we lend out other people's gold and silver, then that businessman is going to give me a return on lending out that gold and silver. And so now in the past, maybe people agreed that their gold and silver would be lent out. And in many ways, that's actually what you agree upon now these days with banking, is that you agree that your money is going to be lent out. But this is how everything has evolved, okay? Now the banks were like, we can lend these precious metals out. The business can now invest and operate, and then we'd get a return on our investment. Fantastic. And then this was kind of revolutionary because in the beginning, people had to actually pay money in order for their valuables to be stored. Right? So there were fees that were there so that banks could operate, and because it was expensive, right? Over time, the banks realized that, wait, hold on a second. If people put their money with us and we make a spread, we make the difference between, the fees, we have the fees, and we also lend out the precious metals to other people, what's going to happen? Well, we're making a lot of money, but we don't have enough of these precious metal stuff. So we're going to make it free for people to put their precious metals with us because we're making money on the back end. Right? So over time, this became now more people would bring their money and put it in the bank. Their money, right? Their precious metals. Well, actually, that was money. And so next in line was that these banks were like, wait, hold on a second. It's actually cheaper for us to store people's precious metals or valuables now that it's mostly paper. Because the government came in and is like, mostly now people had IOUs. So they didn't really have the precious metals anymore. So instead they were like, okay, you can use this IOU in the store, in the shop, wherever you buy inside of our local community, and people will know that you have your money with us. And people started accepting these IOUs, these paper monies, and as a result, the bank didn't have to give out their precious metals when people wanted it. They could just give out the IOUs. I'm the bank, okay? Like, I have everyone's store of value, and I can give it to you whenever you want to, but why would I? Like, it's unsafe for you to carry this stuff around and to store it, like, we'll just give you IOUs. And so this is where paper became the thing. And it became so much easier for everyone, but especially the banks. So as a result, the banking system came to a point where they're like, wait, hold on a second. We can actually pay a yield. We can pay interest to people for giving us their precious metals. And so people were like, wait, hold on a second. You do me a service. You keep my precious metals safe. And then as a result, you even pay me for it? Like, that's a done deal. I have money in the bank and the bank is paying me interest on the money that I've got in there. It became like a a no-brainer to store your valuables with the bank. And over time, though, this this connection between precious metals and the IOUs became severed. And this was well, it's been a lot. Okay, I'm simplifying a lot of this process for you, but in general, this is what's happened over the course of history. And government has now gotten to the point where they came in 1971 because they suddenly didn't have access to money anymore. Okay, real money. We're talking precious metals because that's what's real. And governments wanted, because they had borrowed money or lent out money to the US government to fund the war and to do all sorts of stuff. And so the US government held a lot of other countries' gold and silver. Well, it's basically gold. And the French and other countries were beginning to say, we kind of want that back. So, like, give it back to us. And we don't know what was going on, but Nixon obviously had drained a lot of the money that was there. And so he severed that connection between gold and the IOUs, the paper money. And so as a result, we now have a system in the world right now where the IOUs are not tied to anything valuable other than air, other than trust. Okay, we trust the government, and as a result, we have these IOUs, these paper monies, but it's only, like it doesn't have any worth. Okay, the only reason why it has worth is because people will accept it for goods and services. That's the only reason. But the moment people do not any longer accept those paper, denominations called fiat currencies or dollars or euros or, like Norwegian kroners, whatever it is that you want to call your specific fiat currency, the moment people lose trust in government and lose trust that, this will have any value in the future and that I can't use it with other people to buy goods and services, no one will want those at all. And that time is quickly arriving. And the reason why it's quickly arriving is because of one reason alone. It's because the government continues to make more of it. If the government didn't make more of it, and they were honest and disciplined about how they spend, these papers or how many paper denominations they create, if they didn't make more of them, and we kept a very strict amount, like let's say, for example, it was $1 trillion, okay? And that is the amount. We're never going to print any more than $1 trillion. Then, as a result, they would have to have integrity. They would have to only use what they have, and they would not be able to go into debt to anyone. I mean, they could technically go into debt, but we're like, actually, that's what they're doing right now. They are technically going into debt. They're not just printing. The way that they're printing is that someone is buying their bonds, as we call it. And so they're buying debt with the government. Here, you can borrow from me. And so the government takes from the people, or gets money from the people, and say that we'll pay you back interest. So now the government begins to operate kind of like a bank as well, right? Except for the fact that the only thing that's tied to that IOU paper is that the government, says it is. Like, we have guns and we basically rule the world. This is the US, and you can trust us. Okay, we're always going to pay you back. Is that actually what's going to happen? It's going to be very interesting to see, because right now they are highly leveraged, meaning that they're massively in debt to the point where almost 20% of all of the money that they bring in form of taxes, okay, is going out in interest to those that have lent them money. So, and this can increase very quickly because the interest rate is based on people's interest in loaning money to the government. So if no one wants to loan out money to the government because they're becoming more and more scared that the government's never going to pay them that interest, or, they'll put their money elsewhere, and they'll put their money in things that produce also more yield, right? And give better interest. If the government can only give 5% interest and you can get a surefire way of getting 10% interest elsewhere because of inflation, because of what's going on in the economy, then less and less people are going to lend money to the government. So there's a lot of, I'm making it a little bit too complicated right now, but I'm making sure that you understand how this all works in simple, basic terms so that you are wise at this end of the cycle. Okay, because we're having a 200 and an 80 and an 18-year cycle. Okay, like this is the process that we're going through now. All of them are hitting at the exact same time. Over the next few years, we're going to all basically experience it, and I want you guys to be prepared for it. So what's happened now? Well, there is no precious metals in the bank. Have you noticed that when you go to the bank, there's almost no security guards anymore, right? There are some, but they're just guarding a little bit of money. If you, I remember those Gary Cardone, which is Grant Cardone's brother, he said that he one time wanted to take out $100,000 from the bank. And they said, oh, we don't have that kind of money here. And it's like, what? Like, that doesn't make any sense. We don't have it. So, like, where do you think they put it? Right? Is there a vault somewhere where they have tons of paper denominations? Maybe that's the central bank. That part I actually don't know, but they had to physically order that money in order for that person to be able to take that out in cash. And it takes days, if not weeks, before you can actually access your own cash. So could you imagine, that's just one person. Could you imagine if then 100 people wanted to take out $1,000? Oh, well, yeah, I guess we could do that. But what if it's 10,000 people? What if it's 100,000 people? Like, how many people live inside of your town? And how many banks are there? And how much access is there to actual cash? Okay? Because that's important, that you're able to take out your cash whenever you want to. And there's something called fractional reserve banking, which basically means that the government doesn't have to have any of your money on their balance sheet at all. And what I mean by that is that they don't have your cash. They've lent it out. And so when they lend it out to someone else, yeah, technically it's on their balance sheet, okay? But they don't have that money. It's lent out to someone else. Now they can make more debt, right? But if they don't have access to be able to give you more debt, then there's no capacity for it. They can't give you money. And also, like, what does this mean in practical terms? We're going to return to a time where money is going to become honest again, because there's massive distrust in the system, and corruption is just continuously increasing these days because people are running out of money. Now, the people that are investing in assets, like the rich people, they're getting more and more money, but are they actually? What actually causes rich people to have money? Okay? I want us to just kind of look at the basics of that as well. Rich people own assets, okay? Gold and silver and precious metals that doesn't give a yield. It's very often. I mean, there's ways now that you can do that, but, that's kind of new, uncharted territory. The vast majority of the time, it didn't give yield in the past. But how would they give yield? Well, they would do the same thing that old banks did in the past, okay? However, what is happening with in terms of the gold? Okay, you have gold, and then you've got the rich people with their assets, with their investments. What other assets do they have? Vast majority of the time, it's real estate. Okay, so real estate is as valuable as people need a place to stay. Great, so people need a place to stay. Over time, as people get poorer, what happens to the real estate market? Well, as they get poorer, people now have to begin to congregate in one house, in one place. Okay, there's going to, over time, as people get don't have access any longer to proper financial means, or they don't have a job, or things go into a recession, people can't live by themselves anymore. Right now, we've been having a one man, and one woman type of society where people are single and living by themselves. Right? I don't know the complete statistics on this, but it's like 30 to 40% of adults live on their own. And when that happens, the real estate market is massively booming, right? So if this actually began to decrease, like we entered into a recession where people no longer have any place to stay, then, or people can't afford a place to stay, they begin to join hands and network with other people. Like, yo, can we live together? Because if we live together, then rent will be cheaper, yada, yada, yada. What happens to rich people when this happens? Do they make more money? No, they begin to lose money as well. Okay? So it's like there's only a few people that are going to get rich during a massive recession. Everyone's going to lose money because society is built upon the middle class. It's built upon people actually having access to funds so that they can buy whatever they want and buy whatever they need, and they usually buy that from rich people. So rich people are providing products and services to us in the middle class, and the poor are buying it. And then obviously, the rich can trade with between each other, but the thing is that all the rich are also getting poorer as all of this is affecting everyone. And there are certain assets obviously that would go up in price during this time frame, and I'll reveal that, during this video. So now that we understand this, we're like, where do we go? What do you do? You just need to understand that it's a very fragile system right now, since precious metals is not popular. Precious metals is only in the hands of a few people, and it's extremely cheap compared to other times, okay, in the past. And it's had a, kind of meteoric rise, right, in the last few weeks and months. But like from $2,500 of gold per ounce, right? You have like a little small ounce gold coin for $2,500, and then boom, suddenly it went to $4,000, and now it's approximately there, which is amazing, right? It's insane. And as we understand now that it's not popular, like, yes, there are people standing in line sometimes, and that's been kind of what happened because people were beginning to get rich off of precious metals. Like, that's kind of crazy because that's never, it's happened very few times in history of the past modern day history, past, 50 years. But that happened now recently in the past few weeks where people are like, I can get rich from precious metals, right? And that's something that will happen in the future, okay? Because I personally believe that precious metals will increase by 10x or 100x if you talk about in dollar denominated terms. And why is that? It's because it's going to lose its reserve currency situation. People are not any longer going to trust government. It's the trust, right? When there's a recession, people actually don't want to be in risky investments. They don't want to invest in stocks. They don't want to be in real estate. They want to go into bonds. And bonds, like I've explained earlier, is lending money to the government because the government has guns, and the government, you can trust the government, right? And so money usually goes there. What happens to the value of dollars during that time frame? Well, it actually increases in value. But imagine if you get to a certain point in history, which I believe we're nearing now. Very interesting that we have a government shutdown that's been lasting for a month. And, it could last for another month. Who knows? Makes you kind of question, does the government actually have capacity to fund itself? Very interesting. So we're moving into now a situation where no one, people have to go away from the dollar because it's losing money. It's losing value because government is continuously printing that stuff, right? And they print it by borrowing more money, and they print it also through quantitative easing through the Federal Reserve, okay, without getting too complicated. So what do you do as a rich person? What do you do as a middle class person? What do you do as a poor person? Well, over time, because the economy is not functioning as well anymore, and no man is an island, the middle class and the poor are no longer capable of supporting the rich by buying their products and services, then people are no longer going to be as much in real estate and in stocks and other assets similar to that, because the values are not going to be propped up any longer. Now, it might be propped up in dollar denominations because the dollar is continuously losing value. So it's becoming worthless by the day. And this is why people are like buying all of these assets, but still these assets are going down in price when middle class and the poor can't buy it. It's been a long time where, they haven't been able to buy it, but now it's only the rich that are going to have access to it. And there's always going to be rich people, obviously. So there's always going to be demand on certain things, like, for example, precious metals and stocks and, real estate. And, the question is, what's going to happen to the bond market? What's going to actually happen to the debt that the government has? Are they going to actually pay you out? Because they're in a rock and a hard place right now where they don't have capacity to pay their debts. And so as a natural result, the only thing that they can do is to inflate the money supply and make more of it. And so as a result, everyone's kind of screwed, right? So what's going to happen? Well, people are going to return to what you can trust. And what can you trust? Well, you can trust things that you can feel and see and touch, right? And what is that? You got precious metals. Okay, real estate is always going to be there. The question is, how valuable is it going to be if all the middle class and the poor don't have access to cash to pay their rent? So they're going to live together now because that's the cheapest option. And so we'll have a shortage in terms of housing, not so much any longer. And you know that in the next 10, 20, 30 years, the baby boomer generation are all going to retire and most probably die. And as a result, what happens then? Well, there's lots more housing available on the market. And people are not having that many kids these days in Western countries. And so as a result, people don't need an extra place to stay. And so everything's obviously going to balance itself out. You just need to understand how this all works. And I'm just bringing, helping you to understand what I was teaching my kids the last few days and weeks. And so what do you invest in? How can you know that your savings and your future is intact? So before I answer that question, I'll just answer who's ever on my chat here. I still talk about the 80-hour work week. Of course, absolutely. There's, very few things that are more important than the 80-hour work week. Long time no see, Lavani. Absolutely. This is the hustle, Jim Carrey. Yeah. Some people say I still look like Jim Carrey. Let's see. If we can check out the live stream. A few things that are more important. Okay, cool. It's working. No one's chatting with me yet inside of the YouTube. So we'll keep going here. All right. So hidden secrets of money is basically that precious metals is money. Fiat currency is not money. It's debt. It's IOUs. It's based on nothing but air and trust in the government, and people are beginning to lose trust in the government because of what's happening right now with government shutdowns, but also because of corruption, because of politicians have lost our trust, okay? And so the next aspect of this then is you buy precious metals because you can trust it. Now, how do you handle this? And I can go through that real quickly because you probably don't want to store it yourself, okay? Because that's a little bit unsafe. You want to make sure that you use, in my opinion, I think goldsilver.com is fantastic, and I'll just share with you guys how that works. But goldsilver.com, remember, is the Mike Maloney guy that I was talking to you about. Bro, I trust the dude. I think he's absolutely awesome, absolutely amazing, and he has a huge gold silver storage system and a business around it that I personally believe that you can trust. And the most important aspect of this is that your gold, the cool part about it is that you allocate it or segregated, which basically that's what they do for you. It basically means that they make sure that they actually have that money, right? They actually have your gold and silver, and it's in your name inside of their vaults. And they always have that, by law. Now, obviously, if the government cannot be trusted, that means that law kind of goes out the window, but not really when it comes to people's integrity, right? So if people have integrity, then the rule of law and the government doesn't matter. Integrity is everything. So if your gold and silver dealer actually is someone that you can trust, right? And you saw that, then you actually have that money, right? So the question is, do you trust anyone on the planet? Well, you, you know, it's kind of a difficult situation if you don't trust anyone in your entire life. So that's what I recommend, is to find a trusted dealer. I personally use goldandsilver.com, and your money needs to be, no matter if you use them, and if you use them, then you're going to have all these things that I mentioned now. But if you don't use them, make sure that you find a dealer that has all these things that I'm mentioning. Okay, it needs to be allocated or segregated in your name. It needs to be independently audited, which means that there's a separate company that comes in and actually sees that your money is there. Whatever's on the company's balance sheet needs to be there when people actually count, the precious metals that are in there. It needs to be fully insured. Okay, so that means that you now don't only have that one company that you trust, but you also trust an audit that's independently audited. You also trust the insurance company that if something were to happen with those valuables, then you would be able to get your funds back because of the insurance policy. Now, obviously, if everything collapses, and I personally don't think that everything is going to collapse, but there is a percentage chance, right? There is a probability, although it's a very small, tiny probability, that everything goes to shit, right? And if that's the case, then, you need to have someone that you trust, and how many of these are you actually going to be able to trust, right? It's a good question. And this one is also, you should also have the availability for delivery. Again, someone that you have to trust. It's a counterparty situation. But the cool part about it um, is that you are able to buy in increments and you don't have to store it yourself. That's freaking awesome, right? And so, as you can see here, if you were to buy, invest, okay, so this is how it would look. You buy InstaVault, right? So you can buy it in small amounts, like here, even $50, $50. I think this is awesome. Obviously, if you're from the US and you plan on investing more than $1,000 into it, you can use my referral code. I'll put it in the description. But I don't, that's not what I'm here for. I wanted to help you guys to understand how this all works. Okay, so now that you understand the precious metals part, are there other investments that you could make that the rich are going to make in the future as a result of the situation that we're finding ourselves in? I personally believe that cryptocurrencies are here to stay, that blockchain is an amazing invention, and Bitcoin and Ethereum are safe plays, in my opinion. Obviously, there's a small probability that all of this is just a massive hoax, and, there's a backdoor, and, can you actually trust Bitcoin? Well, it's a trustless system, and it's decentralized because it's being mined by thousands upon thousands of people worldwide that that all of them would have to capitulate, or at least actually it's 51% of them that would have to completely capitulate in order for there to be less security on your funds. Okay, so it's digital gold, it's the new gold, and it allows you to also travel, which is freaking awesome. And the cool part about it, in terms of with precious metals, you kind of have to have it stored with someone else, right? With digital currencies, with Bitcoin and Ethereum, you can have a hardware wallet that has a password that you have in your brain, right? That no one will ever have access to, and you can travel with it, and you have value now that you could exchange with other people worldwide. That's really powerful, because if you have a gold and silver, like, traveling with that is a problem, right? And if you don't have it yourself, then you have to trust this a third party. And I think that trust is important, but how is it all of this is gonna look like? So now that you understand, the entire situation with this, um, what is it? What is worth investing in the future now? Okay, what are the rich going to invest in, and what's going to increase in value? Because it's all about supply and demand, right? Supply and demand, very quickly, basics explained. Supply is when there's a restriction on supply, okay? Meaning the products and goods and services are not available. What's going to happen to the price of that item or good or service? It's going to massively increase in value. And because more and more people are flocking towards it, and the person doing it or offering this service and product and good, he uh, he would like to be compensated for giving access to people of this thing, and he doesn't want to give that access to strangers basically because it's extremely valuable, right? He would rather just keep it for his inner circle and for the people that he loves and trusts, right? So as a result, the price massively has to go up for strangers. And this is what happens with supply. If you have lots of supply of something, like for example the dollar, then less and less people are going to want it. And so as a result, then it has less and less value. And so you need more and more of it in order for you to have an exchange with someone for the trade to be fair and to be a win-win situation. So if you now understand the supply and demand aspect of things, what's going to happen in the next few months and years with supply and demand of vital items? Okay. We've already spoken about real estate and rent, and that's, a roof over your head, and you need that. But what are some things that's expensive, and it's very difficult for middle class and poor to get into that right now, unless you have extremely good salary already, and it's easy for you to take on debt from the bank, which you still can do. It's going to be very interesting for most people moving forward, because banks are going to be scared about loaning people money if they're not sure if they're going to be paid back for it, right? And they're not sure if the government can actually sustain backing them up with FDIC insurance, because the FDIC insurance is also extremely limited, right? It's only available if 1 or 2 or 3 banks go under. But what if 100 banks go under at the same time? Well, there's no FDIC insurance during that time frame. So what's going to happen to supply and demand of other goods and services that are actually going to go up in value because they're right now extremely cheap because no one cares about them? Like, unless you actually were online, you had no idea that gold massively increased in price and was the best asset to own in 2025. You wouldn't know that. I know that, and I study this stuff, so I heard about it as soon as it was beginning to happen, right? And I study charts as well, and gold is one of the charts that I look at every single day. What is going on? If you're not in that space and you're not even thinking about this, it's time to start thinking about it if you want to protect yourself and your loved ones. And so we're now talking about precious metals. We're talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum, which are great plays in my opinion. However, we're at the end of the cycle with Bitcoin. I personally think is going to decrease by 30%. Why would you buy any right now? Because it's possible that it won't. It's possible that it just keeps going up and up and up, right? And so what should you do with that? Well, I'm not buying any Bitcoin right now, personally. But once it begins to tank a little bit and gets to 70K, 80K, around there, I'm going to start my dollar cost averaging situation. And I'm not a financial advisor, obviously, so don't take advice from me. But this is just personally what I'm doing. And I'm kind of going half on precious metals using goldandsilver.com. And I'm also using Bitcoin and Ethereum. And okay, what else is going to be something that you want to invest in? Well, think about it. Land. Land right now is extremely cheap. Do you hear about tons of guys in your close vicinity that sell land? Right? Is that something that you hear from tons of people all the time? Oh yeah, I'm a land seller. And you want to buy land from me? Or I just bought land. Like, you don't hear those conversations much. That's going to increase massively in the future. Okay? When when people will need a place that they can grow food because the shelves in the stores are no longer available. Why aren't they available anymore? Well, because when the dollar hyperinflates, what happens with goods and services? Well, people are like entrepreneurs very quickly stop wanting to be entrepreneurs because the prices of goods are continuously increasing, making it very difficult to navigate. Is it worth buying in this product or service right now? Because tomorrow it's going to double in price. And if it doubles in price, this is hyperinflation stuff, okay? If it doubles in price, are people actually going to still buy it? And so people are like, they're going to try to supply people, but it's going to be very difficult because people aren't willing to work for nothing. And so, like, there's going to be a time when there's not much available in the shop anymore. Okay, if the system breaks down, even if it's just for a month or for 3 months until, government manages to fix something because of riots and all sorts of problems that might happen, you need to be ready for that stuff. And even if it never comes to become that bad, we're going to get really, really close to it, which means that the pricing of land is going to massively increase. And what would you want to have on that land? Right? You would want animals on that land. You'd want seeds for that land. Those are all things that are also massively going to increase in price in the future. Like we're talking 100x, okay, compared to right now. I looked at prices for cows, and it was like approximately $2,000 for a cow, at least here in where I live in Georgia, in Eastern Europe. It's probably a lot more in the US. I don't know, $3,000, $4,000 per cow. I don't know, but think about that for a second. That's it for a cow that can actually feed people for like it would feed a family for like what, a year if you manage to freeze it properly or longer. Like I don't know how long that stuff lasts. Like 1 kilo. How much does a cow weigh? And you have meat now for at least the winter from just one cow. Like you understand how scarce food becomes in that situation when everyone's rioting, no one's working, and there's problems everywhere. And there's like, where do you go? Like, you go into the woods to forage? Like, you find deer? Like, I obviously this is like extreme thinking, like, but it is possible. There is a small, slim probability that what I'm describing right now could potentially happen. And as a man, you're responsible for yourself and you're responsible for those that you love. And so you need to think about the worst case scenarios that might just not happen, but that could potentially happen. And so if you have money, if you're in a situation where you have capacity to actually buy things that are extremely cheap right now, why wouldn't you? Now, obviously, don't go out there and buy a cow necessarily right now, especially if you don't have land, because that wouldn't make any sense. But if you did get land, then the pricing of animals is extremely cheap now compared to what is going to be in the future because it's going to be survival mode. So if you understand these things, you're going to 100x your monies if you have access to that type of stuff in the future. So that's that part. But I'll let you know right now what you can do if you're not in a situation where you can buy land. You're not in a situation where or at least big enough land that it would make a difference during this type of time frame. Or you don't, it doesn't make any sense for you to buy animals, buy seeds, and buy lots of food storage. And maybe you don't have capacity to invest a lot in precious metals, but you can dollar cost average. But that's not, that's gonna make you money, but you're gonna have to spend it, right? Like as soon as we enter into trouble, you're gonna need to spend your silver and your gold. And so as a result, it's going to deplete very quickly because you need to buy stuff. And if you're poor middle class and you don't have a job, what are you going to do? Right? We're talking about basics of life here. You're going to have to understand how the world works. You're going to have to get some skills that other people would want in that type of scenario and time frame. You're going to have to develop discipline and be a leader and overcoming your fears and doubts and mental health issues. Like you don't have capacity or time to still struggle with that stuff. You'll want to uh, develop skill sets that other people are willing to pay their hard-earned gold and silver for, and their Bitcoin and Ethereum? Are you going to have like, if the internet works, we still got Bitcoin, right? Some people say that, well, actually, we have satellite for Bitcoin, so even if internet was to not function, then we still have access to Bitcoin. Yeah, but who knows how to use the satellite systems? Okay, very few people do. So in general, just understand, like, there's a lot of variables to this, and we can't predict what's going to happen. And maybe everything's just hunky dory, and we're just going to continue with wealth and awesomeness for the next 100 years. Right. What are some things that you will for sure need? You will need people skills. You will need networking. You will need alliances. Now, this is the most important part of this presentation, because if you don't have someone that you can trust and they are able to trust you, then no matter what, you're going to be screwed, right? And those that you love is going to be screwed. If you're a good man who's honest and integral and who has utility, meaning you have skills that you can help out during times like this, you have a fantastic attitude, you are positive, and you have you're not a drain on resources, not a drain on people's attention, not a drain on people's the scarce amount of money that's going to be available for the middle class and the poor. Actually, it's not going to be a middle class. It's just the poor, the rich and the poor. But preferably, you would also want to be trusted by rich people. If you're trusted by rich people, or you yourself are rich, you're going to be just fine as long as you've got protection. But then again, you need a network, you need an alliance, you need a place to stay where things are safe, right? So if all of this is good to go, you're good to go. And you can actually look to the future excitedly. Like, I'm actually excited about the future. And that kind of doesn't make sense if when you hear everything that I've spoken about for this past hour. I'm excited because I understand these things. So since I understand these things, I can be prepared. And if I'm prepared, I don't have to fear anything. I can actually go and meet every single day with a smile, and and be ready and prepared with what I've got prepared, and prepare even better, right? And so when when it does hit the fan, I'm good to go, and I can actually lead people the right way. And because I'm able to lead people, because I've got more information and more understanding of the situation, makes me a leader. As a result, people will also try to protect me at all times, right? In order for everything to work out for them. Because that's how it works, right? If you are scared of your survival, you want to protect your network. And so friendships are going to be more powerful. Family is going to return to become really powerful. The dating market is actually going to improve, believe it or not. And people are going to be more wise about who marries their daughters. And like, we're going to survive this. This is my personal belief. I don't believe that we're going to go extinct. I believe that everything is made in the correct way for us to thrive as a human species. But that it's not just going to happen on its own. It's going to happen because people take responsibility and make sure that they're protected, but that they also help other people to be protected. And that people are not ignorant on these subjects. If people are ignorant on the basics of life, we're all screwed. If people understand these things, they're prepared, and they start voting better politicians into power. If we have better politicians into power that are honest and integral and actually understand these basics, most politicians don't, right? Then we can actually look forward to a brighter and brighter future, because the vast majority of people are good people. It's just that when they're in a scarcity situation, they do stupid stuff, because they are very, like, we're all about self-preservation first and foremost, right? Because you're only inside of your head and inside of your body, and what other people experience outside of your personal experience, you don't really give a rat's ass about, right? But if you begin to, and if other people begin to, that's when we can actually move towards creating a utopia where the things that happened in the past never have to happen ever again. and for people to understand and learn their lesson, that life is not just about, yeah, well, let's eat and get drunk and do this and do that and and just sleep around with whoever we want, and who cares about family, and I'll only care about myself, and that's what's the most important. Then we're all screwed again. Once we begin to understand that what you do is important to me, because no man is an island. You like every single person affects every single one, right? We understood that the network effect is from Facebook. Like, there was a study made that every single person is just 6 layers removed from every single person on the planet, at least on the Facebook platform, I believe. That's actually really insane to think about, but that means that what you do is, has a butterfly effect and affects a lot of people. And so when you do the right thing, you are making the world a better place. You simply understanding truth and beginning to apply truth in your own life, you'll make the world a better place. So, appreciate all of you guys for commenting as well. I'm on Instagram at the same time. I think gold and real estate are the things that always grow no matter what. Good one. Prices are just growing and growing. Crypto world is unpredictable. It can fall apart at any moment. Uh yeah. I somewhat agree. Well, at least the crypto world that is not Bitcoin and Ethereum, because all of these other coins are just inventions that could work if people are willing to invest in it, right? And there's very few crypto projects that actually have any form of viable solutions to the world, and as a result, there's no cash flow there. But there's cash flow in Bitcoin, there's cash flow in Ethereum, simply from the fees that people use in order for people to transact with each other. So I believe that Bitcoin and Ethereum has a very strong future. I believe the crypto world in general, once we get past this hump over these next 10, 20 years, crypto has an amazing future ahead of it. But, we got to take care of business first. And so I hope you got lots and lots of value out of this situation and this video. And let me answer this last question. What do you think about Dogecoin? It's worthless. Like, you can't, like Elon's coin, which he started, he was gonna bring to Mars. Yeah, or he stated, yeah, it wasn't his coin. I mean, obviously, if the crypto market keeps going up and up and up because the dollar becomes less and less worth, right? There are lots and lots of people in the crypto markets right now, so there is potential that it goes up. I believe that there's a 60 to 70% chance that the top is in. And if the top is in, then all of the altcoins, except for Bitcoin and Ethereum, are going to drop by 95%. Another 95% from where they are right now. And so if you are excited about losing your money, then invest in altcoins right now, right? If you've already invested a long time ago into altcoins and you've decided where to take your profits, if it goes below a certain level, like that's your stop loss, then, there's nothing wrong with having some money that you don't care about just, exponentially potentially grow. But who knows what the future brings? None of us know, except for those that understand charts. But even then, even those that understand charts, they can't predict the future completely. If you are a trader, you'll understand that everything is a game of probabilities, and because it's human behavior and human psychology that determines what's valuable and what's not valuable. So who knows what the price is going to do? Just don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Don't bet the farm, right? There's a reason why that one exists, by the way. And do what you think is going to happen. If you don't think that my scenario is going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years, do whatever you want, invest according to your beliefs. But then when you've made that decision, understand that things change, and understand that we sometimes are right, sometimes we're wrong. And we just have to live with those consequences and be excited every single day by the decisions that we make and the repercussions and consequences we've got. So hope you guys enjoyed. I'm excited to make more videos like this, and we'll talk more later. Let's see. We've got Donatas with us. Hey, great to see you again, brother. Classic cars will increase in value. Most probably, but it's a good question. Money flows to where the perceived perception of value potential is without making effort. Wealth is created not by producing goods, but by controlling perception of value. Yeah, you could say that. But at the same time, when there's not a lot of goods, then producing goods is what, is increasing value. Like, the perception of value actually doesn't matter if people don't trust each other. There's only a perception of value if you can actually see it. That's why you need to see it in order to believe it. And the less people trust each other, the more you have to see in order for you to believe, right? If all trust is taken away, who cares about perception of value? Because you don't trust it. And this is more and more happening with AI, because like you can fake a person and their voice. Like, how insane is that? Like, we're entering into a trustless situation there where trust is everything. Water, very important. Totally agree. That's going to increase. Animals will not increase in value. Well, in dollar terms, it's going to massively increase in value. In terms of gold, probably it's going to be the same, right? So if you own gold, you're hedging yourself against inflation. You don't experience inflation. Actually, when you buy gold, very often the price on goods that are available right now decreases. Like, the price decreases, Like, in terms of Bitcoin and gold, housing has massively decreased in price. Like, massive. Okay? Like, we've come, like, there was a point in time where you needed like 300 ounces of gold in order for you to buy a house. We went below the 100 mark. So that means that housing actually went down by 66%, in gold terms. And that's what you should be denominating things in, not dollars. So everything is calm and peaceful in Georgia, where I am. It is. Even if we don't trust the government system will survive and even get stronger. I'm actually not sure. Actually, I don't think people are going to believe in politicians much in the future. So that is interesting, right? If we trust in politicians and the people that we vote for, awesome. But think about the perspective that, we're trying to have politicians lead 350 million people in America, right? And if you talk to most people, they're not going to care for the left or the right. They actually don't want to be led by those people. And if the system is completely and utterly broken, then they don't care about the government. And the moment no one cares about the government and they begin to lose their power, like, the people is so much more powerful than the government. So, when there are protests and riots in big cities in the future, politicians are going to be unsafe. And there's going to be lots and lots of corruption at the very end of the cycle with politicians, because they are able to quickly have a money grab, which is kind of what they did with the pandemic, honestly, in order for them to protect themselves and their own families, because they don't really care about the people, do they? So hopefully in the future we do have politicians that we can trust, but most probably what's going to happen, in my personal opinion, is that we're going to break up into smaller communities. We're going to break up into smaller networks of villages and communities, and the world's going to look completely different 50 years from now. We might just restart society completely because of wars and everything that's going to happen. And eventually, yes, there's going to be governments. There's always going to be governments of some sort, because you want to be allied with, you know, I think about it from this perspective. If you live in America and you live in a small little township, right? Then you want to increase your alliances beyond those borders so that you feel protected, because beyond your borders, people are there protecting you. You want to be inside of a bubble, and you want the bubble to be as big as possible so that people can't penetrate the bubble to get to you, right? So if a town is safe, then we're good. But as things, become less and less trusted, then you can't trust that big bubble, right? So right now we can trust that the government is going to protect you in that small little town inside of the US. But can you trust that long term? Probably not. So, but if we can, fantastic. But for that to happen, we have to return back to some form of gold standard or Bitcoin standard, because the fiat monetary system is not going to work out. So, love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for watching.